What's up, YouTube? I'm going to teach y'all in this video how to disassemble a vintage or an older Johnson Evinrude lower unit. This specific lower unit is a 1950s model. I think it's 59 that came off of the 10 horsepower QD20. This model is very similar to all Johnson Evinrude lower units from about 25 horsepower and under up to 1982. So whether you got a 50s, 60s, 70s, or early 80s model, this video will help you out. We're going to take it apart, we're going to put it back together, and we're going to install a seal kit, and I'm going to go step by step. Thanks for watching. Alright, so first what I'd like to do is talk about my setup here. I just have here a portable workbench basically, and basically I just have a 1.5 inch slot by about 8 to 9 inches deep, and that allows me to take the lower unit and just slide it in here, and that makes it a lot easier to work on. So might be something that'll help you out if you're doing the same thing. Alright, so the first thing you're going to want to do is remove the skeg. The skeg is this part right here, and it's held together with 3 fasteners on each side for a total of 6, and then also there's a fastener right here that basically allows the shifter linkage, which is this, to pivot. So you're going to want to take all 6 fasteners and that 1 pivot fastener out. This right here you don't really have to take apart. One thing is, when you're working on these older units, sometimes these fasteners don't want to come out, so I would highly recommend a hand impact screwdriver. I'll link this in the description below. They're very cheap. You can get them from anywhere from under $10 to no more than $15. So they're very handy. You'll get your money back out of it easily. If they are hard to get out, you simply put it on there and twist while you beat on that a lot harder than that with a hammer, and they'll pop loose. Otherwise you risk stripping these heads out. Alright, so I got it knocked loose, and let's take a look. So that looks pretty good. There's just a lot of sludge in there. Here's the rubber seal. This is one of the seals that we're going to replace. So that looks pretty good, no major cracks. Let's look at, so the gears actually look in really good condition, considering this is a pretty old unit. I don't see a lot of pitting or a lot of rust or anything like that. That hole right there, that's where that pivot screw, that's where it sits and allows the shift rod to activate the forward and reverse gears. Alright, so let's take the gears out. Alright, so to take the gears out, it's pretty easy. You just lift up on the shifter linkage. You could actually go ahead and just remove this piece from inside there. Put that to the side. Pull up on this a little bit, and it should just, may have to beat on it a little bit. Yeah, there we go. And then the gear, the whole entire gear assembly should just come off, and you can set this to the side. What you can do now is take off, just simply pull out this center gear in here. You can just pull that straight out, and there should be a washer in there as well. Alright, so I got that center gear out, and I was wrong, it's just one gear. There was not a washer. But next you can just pull the shift rod linkage straight out. Just pull it straight up and it'll come out. Alright, next we're going to take off the impeller housing. Comes off with 4 fasteners. Simply just lifts straight up, slides off the drive shaft. Here's the impeller. This little thing you want to make sure stays with the drive shaft, so that that's what guides the impeller. But since we took that gear out of the bottom, drive shaft now should just slide up out of place. Take this off. Alright. Now, we've pretty much got the lower unit gear housing completely disassembled. Now what we're going to do is start changing out the seals. We have a seal here. This is a brass bushing here. It has a rubber grommet inside. We're going to tap this and then pull it out. It's press fit in there, so this is probably the hardest part of the job. And then here's a couple of seals here. We can just pry out, clean all this up, inspect the roller bearings. I think there may be some roller bearings down there. Most lower units have them. This may be too soon. But inspect this lower unit and then start putting it all back together. Alright, now on taking this seal out, what you can typically do is just get a screwdriver in there and there's a rubber piece in there you can punch through, and you can just, I don't know, beat on it a little bit, pry it out. It doesn't matter if you destroy this bearing in here, not bearing, seal, because we're going to replace it anyway. Actually, this whole piece comes out. One way to get the seal out is if you have a vise, you can put the plate in here like this, come in from the back side with a flathead screwdriver, and then tap it out with a hammer. I'm not going to do it because it's going to shake the camera. Alright, okay, I've just tapped it out and there it is. Final product. Should be a rubber gasket on the back side. Next, we're going to move the brass bushing right here, and we're going to do that by tapping the brass bushing with 5/16 tap, and then putting a block over here with a hole in it, and then tightening down a fastener on through the block, which pulls out the brass bushing. Alright, so you can see that I had to beat on this thing to get it started, and you can see it's just not straight. So this is something, if anybody out there knows a better way to do this, please put it in the comment section, because this sucks, and it's hands down the hardest part of resealing and rebuilding this lower unit. Alright, so there you have it. It's tapped.
Alright, so after you drill and tap the bushing for a 5/16 18 fastener, you can get a piece of metal or some wood or whatever with a hole in it and block it up like this. And what we're going to do is we're going to screw in the fastener, and this bar here is going to keep the fastener where it is, and it's going to pull up the bushing. Pull up the bushing.
Alright, so once you get it out, this is effectively what you're removing. Removing this brass bushing, but this O-ring is what sits down in here beneath this bushing, and this O-ring is what keeps water from up here getting down into your lower unit. This one looks old, and obviously it needed to be replaced. So that's what we're going to do. One other thing that I've done is I've taken this and with a wire wheel I've cleaned off all of these surfaces very well on the top and on the bottom. You'll need to do that for whenever we reseal it all back up together. Not only have I done it for that, but I've done it for all of the gear case pieces, all of the gears, and for this right here, I've done it for that as well. Just cleaned it up very good. Also on the bottom of this side, just cleaned it all up. Alright, so the next thing we need to do is remove this seal right here. And you can do that by just prying on it with a screwdriver. And this one comes off. You can remove the O-ring with just a pick. O-ring comes off like that. You probably want to clean out from underneath there. I'm going to attack the problem from the bottom. Use this along with a hammer. Yeah, recommend that, and it'll just pop right out. Again, this is destroyed. You're not going to reuse it. So with everything taken apart, we're going to put it back together. You're going to need this high performance rubber and gasket adhesive. I recommend this 3M 847 Scotch weld, not RTV sealant. You got a seal kit that came in. It's a Sierra model 18-2682. Make sure you check the description. That may fit yours, but if not, there's links to your specific part number in the video description. It comes with everything you see here except the brass bushing that we tapped and pulled out. You'll need to order one of those off eBay or another website. I'll put the model part number in the description as well for this brass fitting. To reinstall the brass fitting, you're going to first insert your rubber gasket, and this may take a little work to get in, but you want to make sure you press it down in there nice and firm, and that you have it flat in the bottom. That's pretty important. So you can take, I think this is a 5/16 1/4" drive, and that'll get it started being flat. Then after that, you can see on one side there's a bevel end that goes in first. You get it as flush as you can. It'll start. This is a 3/8 drive. And there you go. Just get it started and flat. I wouldn't go much below flush. And there you go. It's installed. Next, we're going to install the seal in this component that we took out. You're going to see one side is very beveled, and the other side you can just barely see the rubber O-ring. You're going to want to install this side up. Again, you can see the rubber on this side very well. This has this metal seal. You want to install this side up. Same principle. Get you some sort of a socket and a hammer and tap it in. Now that I've gotten it in there, you can use a vise too, aside from the socket and hammer approach to get it started, but you'll probably need a socket and hammer to get it finished. After you've got the brass fitting in there and this seal, you can place well, we got to put our washer down. So line it up on here. And then install it that way. There you go. When you're taking apart the drive shaft gear, you want to make sure on the bottom side of where this gear slides into the drive shaft, it's keyed. And it's keyed with this little bitty metal piece. And that's what locks the gear into place and allows this smooth shaft to grab this gear. So you want to make sure when you're taking the drive shaft out in this bottom gear that you do not lose this key. Okay, it's very small. Just make sure you don't lose it. Alright, now with the top end together, we're ready to assemble the drive shaft, new water pump, and the impeller housing. Alright, so the impeller doesn't really have a top or bottom side, and it's best sometimes just to go ahead and push it in there, and if you push it in there while you kind of twist or rotate it, to me it goes in a lot easier. And then what you can do is take the drive shaft and force it through there. And you're going to want to go and align that key in the impeller slot. So there you go. Next thing you're going to do is put your plate on there. Make sure you got it orientated correctly. And the shape should line up with that piece below it. Once you have that, you can slide your drive shaft through the assembly and make sure your impeller housing is in there, and then we can bolt it down. Alright, with the impeller housing on there, we're ready to go to the bottom side. Alright, so the first thing you want to do on the bottom side is go ahead and put that drive gear in. So slide in the moon-shaped key into the slot, and be careful not to drop it, and then slide your gear on top of that. Next thing to do is push the shift linkage through, and come from the bottom side. I have to put a little pressure to get it through the hole, and slides in like that. Alright, the last seal of this type goes in this piece that will ride on the end of your gear train here and interface with your prop over here. This keeps the water from getting in behind the propeller. Same deal, you'll see the beveled rubber side that goes down. This flat side you want facing the water. Alright, once you have that installed, next thing to do is put this rubber gasket, the new one, back in the groove. Alright, now we're about ready to start putting this seal back around here, gluing this up and locking it down. Alright, what I like to do next is take my cleaned up skeg and go ahead and start applying the gasket sealant adhesive and the rubber gasket. Now what you want to do is go ahead and place your rubber gasket in the groove and cut it to fit. You're going to want to cut it where it just, you want to make sure it's all in the groove, and cut it on this end where it just goes past that lip. You want just a little bit of excess. Now, this red gasket, that's what comes in your kit whenever you buy it off Amazon. What I like to use is this, and I got a whole lot of it, as you can see. And it's a little bit thicker, and it gives me a better seal, I think. It's just a little bit thicker, and that's what really compresses whenever you tighten the screw. Just screws down, and also it fills up the gap. I feel a little bit better. I'll leave the part number and description and a link in the description in case you want to try this stuff out and not use this gasket. That's just my personal preference. Yeah, this gasket comes in the kit, but I happen to like that one better. I thought I'd share that information. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to put a little bit of glue down. I'm going to lay my gasket, and then I'm going to set this in a vise, clamp it in a vise, and just let it sit for a little bit while I get this set up. You don't want the glue to dry. You just want, you know, I just like to let it tacky up a little bit so it's not as messy whenever we put it all back together. First, I think we need to put in the oil fill level screw gaskets. They're the little white plastic O-rings that you get in the seal kit, and they go on this screw in the skeg. That's what keeps the water from getting in that screw. And then the other one goes on the oil fill level plug. Just go ahead and put those on and screw them down. Alright, so I've got the skeg in a vise. I've got the noodle gasket cut to length. Now I'm going to put some of this 3M Scotch weld. I'm going to take this off, spaghetti seal, put some Scotch weld down there, place the spaghetti seal, and let it sit while we go do the other side. Alright, so we got the 3M adhesive and the spaghetti seal in the skeg, and now we're going to go do the other end. Alright, so on the other end, we're going to first start by applying some 3M sealant to the bottom side of this part. And then carefully placing it. Next, we're going to apply this. Go ahead and position that back together. Now we're going to, this stuff's pretty messy, kind of apply a bead around the perimeter here. Remember, make sure you have this ready, and it also has a little rubber seal you want to replace and put on there first. And then we have to basically line up the hole, and you can use the, there we go, you can use the shifter linkage down below you to position it, and maybe you can do it a little bit cleaner than I just did. Now we tighten down all the fasteners and let it dry overnight. And there you have it, rebuilt lower unit. And there you have it, completely rebuilt, resealed lower unit.